Hello, and welcome back to the Talkoffamepod podcast with your host, Kylie Montigney. And on today's episode, we're joined by singer-songwriter Faith Marie. Thanks so much for coming on, Faith. I'm super excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have you on. So you just came out with a new song called More Than I Am, which is about the process of allowing yourself to let go of your inner demons. Like, how did your personal kind of experience letting go of things help write the song?
I think that it's a process. Life has its ebbs and flows, and so as you let go of one challenge, you're faced with another, and I think that that was part of the push was that I'm always going to be facing new challenges, and I don't need to let them define me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the whole EP is that process of kind of digging in deep into the darkness and all of the trials and tribulations I've experienced and deciding to move on. Because I guess as I transition into adulthood, it's like, okay, here are some new challenges that I have to face, and I felt almost as if I couldn't face them until I
Mm-hmm.
closed the book on some other things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like that makes total sense. He's like, as you get into adulthood, I'm only 16, and as time goes on, like you have to face many challenges, especially as a teenager or like a young adult, you face many challenges that like no one will ever face, like demons or trying to get through things, like mental health or fake friends or all those processes that you deal with being a teenager. That's like you do not know how to kind of live like kind of through that or how to kind of live life like that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, being a teenager is kind of like living a little bit of an adult life with a like an underdeveloped, I guess, processing system. So
Mhm.
it's a huge challenge, and that's why a lot of my songs that I wrote when I was a teenager are they kind of touch on those issues and how difficult it was for me.
For sure. Like, I just feel like every teenager has like a difficult time with being a teenager, like or a young adult, whatever kind of like people like to just kind of like describe it. Is that like every teenager has its challenges. Every being a teenager is hard. Like most
Mhm, absolutely.
people had to deal with mental health, especially with being in the pandemic. We're like I think 3 years into the pandemic, and like pandemic really kind of made a dramatic change, especially in mental health. Especially like from my experience, my mental health like went down during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I'm not sure else's mental health or challenges like during the pandemic, but like even with the pandemic, like mental health and what the way people are getting treated, I think are probably increased by the
Hmm.
time before the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
And
sorry for
like
the background noise. I have a dog.
no worries at all, no worries. But like what was like your vision when writing More Than I Am?
Um, I think that it was a process as I was writing it. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be when I began. I just knew that I had a lot of things on my chest that I needed to express, and a lot of times I can't really work through things until I write about them. It's kind of interesting, but it's a very subconscious process. And so that's what I think makes this song so cool and interesting is that you're genuinely coming along this journey of self-discovery with me as I'm writing it.
Like, exactly. Like every single fan like has an artist that they connect to, and especially when writing about your personal feelings, you
Yeah.
always like it songwriting or even writing itself is like a big kind of tool to letting go of like what you're feeling or like kind of
Yeah.
a tool to like talk about it, even though you don't want to talk about it to
Exactly.
like your family or friends.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that was a big part of it as well was just I think separating myself from my music career and my artistry was difficult. Uh I felt like I had made a name for myself with my demons,
Mhm.
And so it was really extra scary for me to let those things go because I
Mhm.
didn't know if people would relate to me anymore.
Yeah, like that's honestly understandable, and like tons of people like understand, they can really connect with mu like music is such as yours. Like people, especially with mental health issues, like people always kind of dive into music that really kind of relates to what they're feeling. And that, I think like your music is kind of like the definition of that, is that like even with a person that's suffering with mental health or things kind of going living life, like people always have a kind of like a song or like an artist to kind of dive into with music, kind of like with mental health. And I think like you're like the definition of that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people for they forget that people create art in a certain state of mind, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily a being, if that makes sense. It's very like life has its ebbs and flows, and so just because I'm feeling a certain way one time doesn't mean I'm always going to feel that way forever. Just like the EP that I just released, this was definitely a big growing experience for me, but it doesn't mean that I won't in the future have setbacks and write about those setbacks and the new demons that I face as life goes on.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And like as you mentioned like your EP, like can you tell us more about that and what it's about and everything?
Yeah, so it's just about a very transitional period of my life, like I talked about before, just figuring out that I was holding on to things that I didn't necessarily, that didn't serve me. And I was honestly having a hard time creating, maintaining relationships. And the pandemic definitely didn't help.
Mm-hmm.
And also just that transition from uh, childhood to adulthood. That was very difficult during that period of time. And so I definitely hit rock bottom, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what that song means. But it was a very interesting rock bottom for me because I could definitely feel the development that had happened in my brain where it was like, okay, I've been through this before. I've hit rock bottom before and I've come out of it alive and uh maybe even stronger. So I
Mm-hmm.
can go through this and I can learn from it to the fullest extent. And through that, I was able to deal with past trauma as well that I feel like I wasn't at the mental capacity to work through before. I think when you're younger, you don't always realize how things are affecting you until you're an adult and you have all of these weird uh, habits and
Mm-hmm.
and traits, and you are like, where did this come from? Why am I
Mm-hmm.
like this? Why do I have these triggers? And then you can dig deep and realize how things affected you that you didn't even realize at the time. And so it's kind of that process. And and then more than I am is that acceptance period where it's like, okay, yes, I've gone through these things, I've been damaged, but it doesn't have to define me. I am more than my demons. I am more than this human experience. uh I am a big believer in energy and
Mm-hmm.
spirituality. And so I truly think that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so we're never really going to feel comfortable in this life, unfortunately. Sorry.
You're fine. Yeah, I have
We're-
three dogs as well, so I'm used to it all, like so much. Like in most of my interviews or podcasting, my all you can hear my dogs is going crazy.
yeah, he's a puppy right now. He's only 12 weeks. I can introduce you to him. Come here, Simcoe. Do you want to say hi? But he's pretty crazy right now.
Oh, what kind of dog is it?
He's an Australian Shepherd.
Oh my God, it's so adorable.
Yeah, he's crazy though.
Like, when did you get them?
I got him a month ago.
Oh, are you like a dog lover?
Oh yeah, I have another
Oh,
dog too, another Australian Shepherd, and she's
I
three.
love Australian Shepherds or like German Shepherds. Like any dog that like whatever
Shepherd.
there is, I love. Like I'm a big dog lover that I literally begged my parents to get 3 dogs.
Yeah, I'll probably get another one at some point as well.
Yeah.
I just love them so much. They're
I'm like I would like buy a whole farm of dogs if I could,
yes,
honestly.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, like on April 6th, you came out with a music video for More Than I Am. Like, what was kind of like your vision for the music video? Like, what did you kind of want the music video to kind of show or like what you want it to be?
So for me, when I was writing More Than I Am, I also had my listeners heavily in mind. Uh, I was going through this journey myself, but I was also thinking about the people who listen to my music and relate to it and how it was kind of this conflict that I had. Here, I'm going to let him out. All right. Um, anyways, so I had this conflict in my mind because I felt like my listeners had related to this very specific point in my life and part of myself. And I was afraid in moving forward from that they weren't going to like me or relate to me. But then as I kind of dug a little bit deeper, I felt like I've been in that position many times. Like my
Mhm.
listeners, they connect to me because we have shared similar experiences or similar feelings and trials. And if I have found a level of peace in this process, then I feel like I should share that with these people, with the people who have related to me. Uh, it's I wanted them to heal with me, if that makes sense. And so that the music video really touched on that idea for me, where I really was speaking to my listeners in this song and in this video. Um, and while also at the same time going through my own transformation, I guess, or my own uh, healing process or acceptance or whatever you want to call it. Um, so that the video I feel like really captured that very well.
For sure. Like with the music video, it's just like when like people watch music videos or even listen to music, they're always like looking for something to feel inspired by or even feel something to be kind of connect to in some type of way. I know like when I go to music, I always kind of dive into something that I will feel inspired to or find an artist that will be my favorite for the rest of my life. Like I know that would never possibly happen, but like as an example, but like
Mhm.
even though music is just a tool to listen to, it can really impact you so much. Even if like you're just a fan or as a songwriter, it will impact your life no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great way to bring connection to people who you wouldn't normally connect with.
For sure. And like in More Than I Am, you have a lyric that says, "Am I more than darkness or am I more than light?" Which I
Mhm.
connected with so much. And like what was like how did a lyric kind of show about like your personal journey or about the song in general? Like what was kind of like that line about?
I think that it was giving myself a little bit of slack, if that makes sense, and kind of touching on that idea that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and so of course we're not going to do everything perfectly all the time or ever, and we're not supposed to. I don't think that we
hmm
can learn if we are doing everything perfectly all the time. And so that's kind of what that touches on. I think everyone strives to be a good person, and I think people are naturally good-hearted for the most part. but we we need that darkness. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that that line is about just kind of stepping outside of the scope of wrong and right, and dark and light, and realizing that we need both.
For sure. Like with being a person, you have to kind of accept the darkness and light your life has to bring. Even
Hmm.
like you feel alone for this journey, there's always dark and light every single day. Like, of course, one day you might feel dark, one day you feel light. Like, that's kind of how days work. But like when you're trying to feel like dealing with the darkness, you have to figure out like why am I feeling this darkness? Or how am I like how can I make myself better and make myself happy? Because like, when you're dealing with mental health problems, you just feel like I should give up. Why do I want to belong here? But
Hmm.
then like you just need to realize that like why am I feeling like this? Like what's causing this for me to kind of think this way? Like how can I seek some help in terms of make myself go back into the light and be myself?
Exactly. I mean, what you said was exactly what I had in mind when writing that song, and especially those lyrics.
Like how do you like you allow yourself to kind of let go of your like, inner demons or when you're like going through something tough? Like how do you like let yourself get better and be happy?
I think perspective is a huge part of that. And that's kind of what this song is perspective. It's stepping outside of the scope of yourself and realizing that, there are there's bigger things at work,
Mm-hmm.
and uh there there's no need to hold on, to
Yeah.
the past and uh to trauma. I do believe that we should hold on to the things that we've learned from those experiences, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of those intense emotions don't always serve us, and we tend to sabotage ourselves a lot with those experiences and those traumas and those emotions, uh and I think it's important to, I guess, realize what you were just saying, that uh we can step outside and be like, okay, I feel very intensely right now, but why am I feeling this way? What can I learn from this experience? Why am I being put in this situation?
Yeah, exactly. Like with being a person, with like life obstacles, like you oftentimes are so tough and like don't know what to do. But then like months later when you're happy, like you kind of should reflect and like kind of learn from that experience. Like how did I make through that? Like what how did I actually feel during that time? Or how can I like learn from that experience in my life?
Exactly, yeah.
Like, do you like ever go back to your songs that you wrote that or like released to go kind of full element into how you're feeling or kind of just reflect on like your songs that you wrote?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's such a real it's such a real lens, like a clear lens into what I was feeling. It's like it's a memory. It's a journal entry. I'm transported into that place that I was. And so it's really cool to reflect on those experiences. And sometimes when with time you become separated with the from the person that you were, especially from my teenage years, you go from kind of being, I guess, I wouldn't necessarily say not like emotionally unintelligent, but more so like you have all of these feelings and you don't know how to process them, or you're learning how to
Mhm.
process them. It's they're big, they're ginormous. And so looking back, it's like, wow, I forgot that experience. I forgot what that felt like. And it's really interesting. It's really cool to go back and to see the evolution of how far I've come. And also, I think that I go through things that remind me of certain experiences that I've had in the past, and so I'll go back and kind of just sit in that emotion a little bit. I think sometimes it's nice to sit in those emotions. I mean, we wouldn't have sad movies otherwise, people people enjoy feeling things.
Yeah, exactly. That's like movies and songs are for. So like you always have that one movie that you need to cry to or need like a funny laugh.
Mhm.
Everyone has that funny movie or sad movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what is like that movie for you? Like do you have like a happy movie or like a sad movie that you go to?
Hmm. I would say, let's see. It's weird, but I pretty much cry during any Disney movie ever.
Mhm.
I think just put on a Disney movie and you'll get me in tears for sure. Uh,
Yeah, any Disney movie, like it's always at least one part there's always sadness.
Yeah, for sure. Um, in terms of like laughter, like comedies, I'm more of like a sitcom person, so I would say New
Mm.
Girl
Oh,
was
New
a
Girl is a good
go-to.
one.
That was a
Have you
good
ever watched Friends?
A little bit. I watched it a little bit growing up. It was something that my parents would watch, and so I think as I got older, I'm like, oh, my parents watch Friends. I don't want to watch Friends, kind of thing.
Yeah, Friends is amazing. It's like my favorite show. Like it's actually hilarious. I watch it like every day, like when it's
Oh,
on. I'm like, Friends is just like you never get bored of it. It's like
yeah,
it's so hilarious.
that's awesome.
And like, how do you like overcome like obstacles as a songwriter? Because of course, being a songwriter, it has its obstacles and hardness along your journey. Like, how do you overcome obstacles in your journey?
Um, I think my biggest obstacle is my self-image.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. I think that if I had a little bit more confidence in myself, I might even be more successful if I'm being honest. But I oftentimes find myself thinking, who cares what I have to say? And I mean, it's a terrible thing to think because I'm not necessarily doing any of this for people. I am at the end of the day doing it because it's something that I love to do. But sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to lose sight of that and to subject yourself to other people's opinions and let them affect you. It's hard not to. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time with social media. Social media really, uh, it's not great for me and my personality type.
Yeah.
And so I try and stay away from it. But, as an independent artist, you have to. Like social media is it. And it's difficult. I hate the whole like posting a picture and then, refreshing, seeing the likes go up. And if it's not where it was the picture before, then you're mad at yourself and you're like, what did I do wrong? And you try and, dig into it and figure it
Yeah.
out. And it's really difficult for me to separate myself from that process. It's something that I'm still working on for sure. But I think,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
the same exact ways that like social media can really like affect how you feel about yourself and others. Like what I'm like the same way as well as like that. Like even when I post a picture of myself on social media, I'm always like refreshing because like even if the post that is posted doesn't do as the last picture, and I just think like what did I do wrong? Like should I post something different or what should I do to kind of get that as many likes or even more? Like that's like the worst part about social media is that like you can kind of compare yourself to others and kind of be like, hey, why can I look like them? Or can I like how can I get as many friends as them? Or how can I be popular? It's that like social media kind of really controls that and how you feel about yourself and others and how
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
and like do you think like your journey kind of has been hard or easy as like an independent artist?
I think it's a little bit of both. I'm grateful that I went the independent route because I think if I would have gone the more corporate route or with like a big label, I had quite a few labels looking at me when I was younger, when I was a teenager. And I don't think that that would have served me very well. I think that I would have completely lost sight of myself and lost uh, a key perspective that I gained through just kind of living a more normal mundane life and not having my life monetized or uh, put under a microscope. So I'm grateful in that way, for sure. And also just the freedom that comes with it to make what I want to make. But it is, I would say it's more difficult on the success front. It's harder to get in front of people. It's harder to get good, get on good shows. It's harder to make albums when you don't have millions of dollars being fronted. Uh, so yeah, I think it's got its pros and cons for sure.
For sure. Like I like every like story has its failures and success. No matter if like you're a songwriter, artist, or like an actor, everyone has like its pros and cons to your journey.
Hmm.
Like and like why do you want people to kind of resonate with your music? Like why do you kind of want people to kind of connect with it?
I think that growing up, I had a lot of bands that I listened to. I was heavily in the emo scene, and I really related to those songs, and I do feel like it helped me process things that I was going through, and even simpler than that, created emotion, and I I had a lot of fun with that. And so I just kind of want to, I guess, do that myself with other
Hmm
people. And I think that with my music, I I want to bring a little bit more rawness and more perspective because I think that sometimes a lot of artists, especially if they're under big labels, will continue to do things that make them money regardless of how they feel and where they are in life. And for me, I mean, this EP is kind of what it's a great example of this because it's a really great uh, it shows the evolution from my teenage years into my adult years. Like I'm very honest about it, and I think that music sometimes can miss that honesty. I think there's a lot of great artists that have that, but I would like to add. I would like to add to that.
Like every artist is like very different in terms of writing and inspiration, but like not every artist like has its own label. Not every artist has a different journey. Like every artist has kind of a different style in terms of writing music or how they kind of want to be. Like the independent artists, like they rather like not have a label. They rather kind of be doing things on their own rather than be represented by a big label. You know what I mean? It's that like even though they're not represented with a label or the semi-label, they're still artists. Like they're still like writing songs, even though they're not signed with a label. They're still releasing music. They're still living their dream, and it's not like they don't have a fan base. You know, like they can still have a fan base even though they're independent artists.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that as an artist, I just always try and add what I think is missing. I think that's
Mm,
a good way to wrap that uh that question up.
yeah, for
Just
sure. For
just
sure. And, like the last thing I want to ask you is like what is some advice to like songwriters are just starting out or kind of want to be a songwriter, whether it's like an independent or like whatever you want to describe it.
yeah. I think that my biggest piece of advice would be uh it's a little cheesy, but staying true and authentic to yourself and writing for yourself. Picking people that you trust to give you criticism as opposed to uh letting the public decide what's good or not because it's very subjective. So if you know that somebody has very similar taste to you and you trust their opinion, go to them. I think that's a good piece of advice because I maybe made the mistake early on of letting too many opinions shape me. And I think that it did hurt my self-esteem a little bit. I think criticism is very important, though, at the same time. So that's why I guess saying keeping people that you trust in your circle to help you improve.
For sure. That's like honestly the best advice you can give is like criticism is not a bad thing. Like, of course, sometimes it could, but like in terms of being creative, like you have to have that creative circle, whether it's like family, friends, or loved ones, like to
Hmm.
ask for help. Be like, hey, like how did you, like, can you listen this down for me, Dad, bro? Like, I kind of want your opinion, or just ask somebody like, hey, like, can you help me with this? Like, do you have any good wording? Like, how do you feel about this tune? Like, even though they might have some criticism, that's only their opinion. That's only how they feel. It's like whether you get criticism or not, it will help you and shape you as an artist. Like whoever
Right.
is like you can't have too many criticisms because like if you ask like a lot of people, you do not
Mhm.
know what to do. Like you
Yeah.
only have to have that circle small circle of friends or family or loved ones to ask for advice, or even friends in entertainment, be like, hey, you're a songwriter as well. Can you help me? Like, whoever is asking for people you have connections with, or friends or family, or something like this, like, you always have that people that will help you along this journey.
Yeah, exactly. It's a balance for sure. I liked what you said about friends in the entertainment business. I think that's a good point that I didn't that I didn't say, but it's true. I think that uh, being able to ask advice from people that are where you want to be is a huge plus.
That's exactly right. And like, I want to thank you so much, Faith, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. You're amazing and so sweet, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I love
Oh,
chatting with you, and yeah, just thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and thank you everyone for listening for this episode with Faith. I hope everyone listened, and make sure to stay tuned for next episode. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Faith. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your night.
thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was super nice to meet you.
Yeah, same to you as well. We'll definitely connect again soon. Thank you so much, Faith.
Thank you.
No
Bye.
problem. Bye.